The whole country is watching as more than 50 Texas state lawmakers are in the process right now of fleeing our state capitol in essentially a repeat of a walkout that they staged back in May. Again, looking to stop a bill that would change voting laws, but this time the resistance is even bigger. And joining us live is Brandon Rottinghaus, professor at University of Houston, who specializes in Texas politics and political scandal. So I want to start by asking you whether you agree with those who call this scandalous.
Well, it's not exactly a scandal in a traditional way. We think of those as being something that tends to be something that would lead towards criminal charges. This is a legislative tactic. Granted, it's a bit of a radical one, an outrageous one, you could say, but it's one that fits with the Democrats' belief that these laws are pernicious and are problematic because it may take away people's right to vote. That's a legislative debate that they've had. It's a legislative debate they're likely going to have, but it's obviously a very big political issue for both sides.
And this is quite a move to leave the state. Talk about the strategy of physically leaving Texas versus just staying home.
Well, the strategy effectively is to rob the House of a quorum. They need to have a sufficient number of legislators in the chamber to be able to conduct business. It's in keeping with generations of how parliamentary procedure runs. And if there aren't enough of the members in the particular chamber, then they don't have a quorum to be able to act. So what is happening now is the Democrats seem to be preparing for at least a medium-term delay in this process, where they've taken flight to Washington, D.C. to both literally and figuratively run for cover for national Democrats who they hope can help them in this voting fight, because in Texas it's been a real challenge. They don't have the numbers in the legislature, and they've effectively lost much of their voice because the Republicans have been fairly loud about it. So it's going to be a real challenge for Democrats to try to get enough attention to this issue to be able to combat the likely outcome, which is that somehow this legislation is going to pass.
Okay, two quick questions before we run out of time here. First of all, does this impact the rest of the session? Wouldn't they have to come back at some point and finish other work? Or are they planning to be gone?
It'll affect the session in a couple ways. The first is, yes, they legitimately cannot act right now. The chambers can't, at least the House can't act because they don't have a sufficient number of people. So all the bills that have been filed, all the potential agenda items are now on hold. But it also affects them because it really does hurt the camaraderie inside the chamber. And that's really needed to be able to pass the kind of bills that the Texas legislature almost always passes.
And how about any penalties for this? Because for most of us, if we didn't show up for work, there would be some sort of a penalty.
There might be penalties, at least inside the chamber. Typically, they'll be either fined or maybe stripped of committee assignments. But Democrats are looking at the big picture here. I think they're willing to take a short-term risk in maybe being arrested by the DPS agents or by the Texas Rangers to be able to make the broader point. So politically, they have to come at this with a win, because legislatively, it's a real uphill battle for them.
And in this chess game that we're watching, what would you say are the next moves people should be watching for?
I think the next move is what the Speaker of the House does. He's really going to be the person who makes decisions about how to negotiate with the Democrats who have fled. I think that this can be a negotiated solution. We have seen this happen in the past. In 2003, both the House and Senate in different sessions walked out, and what ended up happening was that the sides came to an agreement, or they got enough constituency pressure that said you need to go back to work and really fight this out, or at least have some kind of an ending to it. So it's likely to be resolved in a way that probably doesn't benefit the Democrats. So that's why they're looking for a big political win here as opposed to a legislative victory.
All right, Professor, we appreciate your insight in explaining this. And as you mentioned, it's about what the constituents are telling them to do. They argue they're doing what the people want them to do by walking out. But if you want to let your voice be heard, you can do that by contacting your local representative here in Texas. If you're not sure how to do that, it's actually relatively easy. Go to house.gov and they have a tool right in the upper right of the homepage where you type in your zip code and it will tell you who represents you. Now, if your zip code has multiple representatives, you then would enter your address to narrow it down. And then once you've figured it out, it will link to their website where you can find contact information and reach out to their teams, as they are now looking for feedback from the community and from those who they work for as to how they should proceed.